You could say to lose one deputy may be regarded as a misfortune, but to lose both looks like carelessness.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And it was not just Late Line's Emma Alberici who channelled famous playwright Oscar Wilde last week in the wake of the departure of two of Australia's leading Green politicians. Indeed, if you ever doubted that ABC groupthink existed, here is proof.
I won't be the first person to say today that to lose one senator may be regarded as misfortune. To lose two in a week looks like carelessness.
To misquote Oscar Wilde, to lose one senator looks like misfortune, to lose two seems like carelessness.
But it was not Oscar Wilde who stole the stage when the Greens' Larissa Waters fronted the media for her emotional farewell.
I will sadly have to resign, both as the Deputy Leader of the Greens and as the Senator for Queensland. And, yeah, I wish you all the best. Jono, do you want to say a few words?
This is a really rough day for the Queensland Greens.
Hang on a moment. Who is that guy? On Sky News, Samantha Maiden and Christina Keneally were also asking that question.
The man in the rainbow scarf, Christina, did you clock him?
Larissa stood up for those people in a way that not many other Queensland politicians have done before. And so for me personally, that really sucks that we're losing that.
Wow. I got to say, if this is your big moment to be on national television, well, you know, he certainly took that moment.
It's like, buddy, the press conference is not about you, you know, like, get off the stage with your rainbow scarf. This poor woman has just lost her job.
But why was Rainbow Man, who's a Greens Brisbane City Councillor, given his starring role? And why were newsrooms across the country then so keen to play along?
Never mind Larissa Waters. It's all about Jonathan Shree.
It certainly was. And the folks at Sky News loved him so much they had him back next day with a brand new scarf to indulge in a bit of, slam poetry.
We're not out to throw a spanner in the works. We brought a whole toolbox. We want to fix this broken system, but right now, half our politicians are for sale. You can buy them by the dozen if you have enough dough.
Can't see those lines being quoted by the ABC or anyone else 120 years from now. But now, to more serious matters. And News Corp's Miranda Devine, who is once again trying to exploit a tragedy to score cheap political points. Last month, the telecolumnist blamed the death of 80 people in London's shocking Grenfell Tower fire on green ideology and deadly green ideas. And last week she was at it again, blaming the shooting of Sydney woman Justine Demond by Minneapolis police on America's Black Lives Matter campaign, saying their activists, quote, may as well have pulled the trigger. It's a pretty astounding claim, and it brought a flood of angry comments from telly readers.
What an absolute joke of an article.
Bottom of the barrel, Devine. Even for you.
And over on Twitter, the reaction to Devine was just as harsh.
Really? Nothing to do with US gun culture or untrained and undisciplined cops? Even by your standards, this is atrocious. Unbelievable.
Is there a tragedy that you won't twist to further your own political agenda? Is there a line you won't cross?
Miranda's argument, as put to Macquarie Radio's Steve Price, is that the Black Lives Matter campaign, which grew from protests in 2012 after the shooting of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, has created an atmosphere in which American police feel unsafe.
The police are terrified to just do their job.
Everybody's very trigger happy and very nervous.
Yeah.
And on that basis, says Devine, you can't blame the policeman, Mohammed Noor, for firing his gun. And that same line is being taken by Noor's defence team.
Attorney for police officer in Demond shooting cites fear of ambush.
It's certainly reasonable to assume that any police officer would be concerned about a possible ambush under these circumstances.
Now, we may never know exactly what occurred that night because Noor and his fellow officer had their body and dash cameras switched off. But Justine's family's lawyer, who also represented the family of Philando Castile, a motorist shot dead by Minnesota police last year, says the ambush claim is ludicrous.
You're ambushed by a person who called 911, who was a blonde woman in her pyjamas? For crying out loud.
Mr. Bennett said the common thread in police shooting cases he has been involved in is a panicky officer.
Devine's thesis, of course, is that Black Lives Matter has made more officers feel more panicky and more inclined to fire their guns. But while two terrible ambushes did cause a spike in deaths last year, the long-term figures show a decline. So far in 2017, 26 US police officers have been shot on active duty, but that's below the rate of the last decade, and less than half the rate of officer deaths in the 1970s. Nor are the police killing more members of the public. So far this year, 554 people have been shot dead by police across the US, or almost 3 a day. But that is on a par with 2015 and 2016, when total deaths finished at close to 1,000 each year. And even if Black Lives Matter has marginally increased the risk to officers and suspects, there are surely more telling points to make about Justine's tragic death, such as it beggars belief that police could shoot a sane, unarmed, unaggressive woman in her pyjamas after she has called for help. And that white people may now understand why black people, who are more than twice as likely to be shot dead by police, might be angry and afraid. Also, that it's shocking that police who do shoot black or white Americans are almost never brought to justice, not least in the state where Justine Demond was killed.
Since 2000, at least 148 people in Minnesota have died after being shot, tased or restrained by a police officer. To date, no officer has been charged in any of those deaths.
But instead of pointing that out or noting that 1,000 people are shot by American police every year, Devine just uses the tragedy to advance her own political agenda.
I don't think it's too long a bow to say that Justine, our Australian wonderful yoga teacher, her death is a consequence of the whole Black Lives Matter fake narrative, their dishonest narrative that police are racist.
Really? Well, to quote one succinct comment below her Telegraph column, we think that is
utter crap, Miranda.
But now to an unholy row featuring domestic violence, Christianity, and we're told the crusading armies of the ABC.
The ABC's war on Christians is becoming hysterical as well as factually inaccurate.
Yes, an ABC war on Christians. So, whence comes the latest attack? Well, according to Andrew Bolt, it was in this story on 7:30 last Wednesday.
In all the conversations we have about domestic violence, what's rarely discussed is the role of religion. We talk about women in Islam, but statistically it's evangelical Christian men who attend church sporadically who are the most likely to assault their wives.
It is a remarkable claim, which comes from a 12-month investigation led by the ABC's Julia Baird that ran across multiple platforms. And it's one to which church leaders were quick to respond.
Churches hit back at selective ABC show. Church leaders have accused the ABC of selective, inaccurate and anti-Christian journalism in a report on its TV program 7:30 that claimed the biggest wife bashers are Christian men who sporadically attend church.
So, does the ABC claim stack up? Well, in one respect, almost certainly not, as Andrew Bolt was quick to point out.
It is not evangelical families that suffer from the worst domestic violence. It is Aboriginal families. Aboriginal women are at least 32 times more likely to be put in hospital by their violent partners.
That point aside, the 7:30 report was compelling viewing, featuring heartbreaking interviews with victims of domestic violence who claimed that church teachings were used to justify their continued abuse.
He used biblical context of obedience frequently. And the most frequent one, of course, is you promise to obey.
But what of the ABC's claim that churchgoers are more likely to be perpetrators? Well, there's little or no Australian data, but reporter Julia Baird cited American research from Dr. Steve Tracy, Professor of Theology and Ethics at the Phoenix Seminary. And in this 2007 paper, he did indeed state that
conservative Protestant men who are irregular church attendees are the most likely to batter their wives.
But Tracy also concluded
conservative Protestant men who attend church regularly are found to be the least likely group to engage in domestic violence.
That is, the more you go to church, the less likely you are to bash your partner, which is a conclusion several other US and New Zealand studies have come to. Julia Baird freely admitted this on ABC News 24 last week.
Now, it should also be added to that those who go to church regularly are less likely to.
But while the same caveat was also in the ABC's online story, it certainly wasn't in the headline, which went like this.
Submit to your husbands. Women told to endure domestic violence in the name of God. Research shows that the men most likely to abuse their wives are evangelical Christians who attend church sporadically.
Nor was it the message you would have gleaned from watching 7:30, which made no mention at all of the bigger picture, that regular church-going makes abuse less likely. So when Andrew Bolt says...
That is exactly the opposite impression you'd have got from the ABC 7:30 last night.
He has a point. So, what does the ABC say in its defence? In short, not guilty.
The ABC is not at war with Christianity. It is reporting on domestic violence in religious communities. We did not make any false claims. We correctly cited relevant peer-reviewed research.
And Julia Baird says the same.
For the record, there was not a single error in our piece on domestic violence and the church.
Well, that may be so, but we reckon the headlines the ABC used to sell the story misrepresented Professor Tracy's research. And Tracy apparently agrees, telling MediaWatch...
It is all too easy to cherry-pick soundbites and in the process fail to do justice to the data. If you are going to highlight the failures, you should be even-handed and note major successes.
But as to the claim that the ABC is waging war on Christianity, we are not convinced. It's just a shame that it tarnished an otherwise compelling and worthwhile investigation. Finally, let's cross to the footy and ABC Grandstand, which 10 days ago was busy calling Rugby League's State of Origin.
Right through until 10:30. Hope you're enjoying the coverage right around Australia. Andrew Moore with Matthew Elliott and Andrew Ryan for this State of Origin decider. To get us underway for the final 40 minutes of the half, Cameron Smith, here we go.
And one person who was enjoying the coverage was Federal Treasurer Scott Morrison, who posted this comment on Facebook at half-time.
40 minutes for Blues to realise their opportunity. Great call from Andrew Moore on ABC Grandstand.
Over at Macquarie Radio, hard-working Ray Hadley was also in the commentary box calling his 75th State of Origin match.
It's theirs to win, Queensland, and New South Wales have to really put the shoulder to the grindstone.
As a sports broadcaster, few are better than Ray. So, news that the Treasurer, who once appeared on Hadley's show every week, was singing the praises of the ABC was just too much to bear, as he soon revealed.
Talk about small-minded Scott Morrison. I just happened to be sent last week. You know, I called the State of Origin on Wednesday night and Alan was singing my praises on Thursday and I was greatly appreciative of the kind remarks he made. Morrison goes onto social media and says, "Oh, great coverage by ABC Grandstand." Geez, you're a wanker, Scott. A complete and utter wanker.
But that was just the warm-up, as Ray continued with a free character reference for his old good mate.
I mean, it was only 12 months ago you were singing my praises. And now because I choose not to have you on every Monday, because you don't say anything, you don't make any sense, you're a lily-livered, squibby politician who used to have, you know, a say in the way things, and now you're, of course, you know, a butler for the Prime Minister, carrying his tray and his bag and the rest of it. You want to, you know, take pot shots with stupid stuff like that. Just a goose.
Hell hath no fury like a broadcaster scorned, and that's what this is all about. For 4 years, Scott Morrison was a regular Monday guest on Hadley's show in what was billed as a broadcasting bromance. But in April, it ended in tears after the Treasurer skipped a date with Ray and went on to Melbourne's ABC Radio instead, leading to accusations of treachery and deceit.
He's lied to me, or his staff have lied to me. I'm not putting up with that rubbish from him. You know, the love affair of the bromance that's been written about, it's over. He wants to dud me, well, he'll get dudded every chance he gets. The regular chat with the Treasurer is now abandoned.
Ray's latest spray reveals the 2GB star has become even more petulant about the breakup. And it's in sharp contrast to the jokes and laughs from 3 years ago when Hadley called his mate the Honourable and let him indulge in some on-air rugby commentary.
Ladies and gentlemen, flash scores around the grounds from Allianz Stadium. The Minister for Immigration, Border Protection and Member for Cook, the Honourable Scott Morrison. Scott!
Australia 10, France 0, first try to Will Skittle, non-debut, 6'9" behemoth. It was a monster.
Beautiful.
Ah, those were the days. But we won't be seeing them again. And says Ray, Scomo now has no chance of becoming leader, not least because Ray now talks to Tony Abbott every week instead. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. And make sure you catch Media Bites every Thursday. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.